Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to talk about the economy and jobs and wages and all that riveting, exciting stuff about numbers that people don't care about. The short end of it is that things were awesome back in the day, but now they suck. They've sucked for quite a long time. They have sucked since the recession of 2008. That changed everything forever. So let's go into it, shall we? Let's go into some stats. I know you guys love stats. When you look at U.S. wages over the long term, wages after inflation have barely budged over the last 44 years. That is well over my lifetime. So during my entire life, during my entire time I've ever worked, wages have barely risen. Now, you might be saying, oh, numbers-wise, just looking at the numbers, yeah, they're rising. What are you talking about? Doesn't account for after inflation. Inflation is going up, also making the value of the dollar less. So if wages go up 4%, but inflation goes up 3%, that means wages have only increased 1% because inflation just eats that up. So inflation has been going up the last 44 years, almost eating up any gains you will see by wages. Now compare that to the 1960s. This article, I'm reading it from Forbes, the author goes, "It's frightening to consider, but my parents, who were a young couple in the 1960s, could buy a house for less than 25% of their take-home pay. That's incredible. A house for less than 25%. Okay, so let's say they make $40,000. Let's say both of them work, which in the 1960s is unheard of for both couples. Actually, a couple of them, no, that's an exaggeration. Some couples worked in the 1960s. Most of them, only one parent worked. Because he says their take-home pay. Yet later he says, my father was a scientist with a mid-level job. Okay, whatever. Let's just say, for sake of argument, that the parents bring home $80,000. So 25% of that is $20,000. They bought a house. That's like today buying a house for $25,000. Enough for a family of four, because this is a family of four. He talked about his mom, dad, brother, and himself. Where in God's fucking name can you buy a house for $20,000 nowadays? Nowhere. Not even in the most rural of America can you buy a house for $20,000. You can buy a mobile home, yeah, for $20,000. I'll give you that, but he's not talking about a mobile home in this situation. Not only did they buy a house that in today's value would have been $20,000, they own two cars and they put both the brother and himself through college. That is how easy life was back then. Do you know in my area, the average cost of a townhouse, $300,000. Compare that to, in the 1960s, a house for $20,000. Now you might say, oh wait, not many people made $80,000 back in the 1960s. Okay, I'll give you that. Let's say it's $60,000. 25% of that is $15,000. So that's buying a house for $15,000. Like, no matter how you splice it, houses are astronomically more expensive now than before. Now in my area, it's very exaggerated because I live in a big metro area. I know my situation is not the same as in most of the country. It's far worse than most of the country. But the average salary in this county is $90,000. The average townhouse cost $300,000. The average house cost a whopping $500,000. There is not even talking about average, there is no house less than like $480,000 in this county. I know, I've looked everywhere. There is nothing less than $480,000 or $500,000 in a county that the average salary is $90,000. That $90,000 is only bumped up so high due to all of the super rich people who have six-figure salaries. So that means there is a lot of people who make far less than $90,000. The $90,000 is artificially increased by the few amount of people who make a lot of money. I know that's really scientific word. You know, the people who are making six-figure salaries are bumping up the average. Home ownership in this county is locked out for the vast majority of people except for the super wealthy. Why? Because a townhouse costs $300,000 and a house costs $500,000. And I misspoke, but not average. I'm talking about there is nothing cheaper. That is the cheapest house you can buy in this county is $500,000. The cheapest townhouse I've ever seen is $300,000. And we're looking at a county with an average salary of $90,000. So when young people complain that they have it harder than older people, we don't mean that we have it harder than like people who lived through World War II or Vietnam or Great Depression or something like that? No, obviously not. We're not talking about that. What we're talking about is this example right here. People who lived in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, any time before 2008, everything, including home ownership, car ownership, saving money, going to college, all of that was astronomically easier than today. That's what we're talking about. If you made the same amount of money in 1960s versus money today, you could not buy a house. When older people say how much easier, it's like, buying a house is so easy. What are you fucking talking about? Yeah, because in the 1960s, you bought a house for less than 25% of your take-home pay. When I used the $40,000 example earlier, that's pre-tax. Take-home pay is like $30,000. So that's 25% of $30,000. Where in God's name can you buy a house that cheap anywhere today? Not even the most rural estates can I find a house that cheap. Maybe a mobile home, that's about it. That's the example we're talking about. Now he goes on to income inequality, which again is not a problem. People making a lot of money is not a problem. We want to raise people's wages as high as possible. We don't want to bring the top down and bring the bottom up and meet them somewhere in the middle. No, we want to raise everyone. So I'm going to ignore a part about the income inequality. I don't give a shit about that. Then he goes on to workers are struggling. There's lots of stats we're going to go through. 40% of Americans have trouble paying for food, medical care, housing, or utilities in the last year. Nearly half Americans have no retirement savings. 63% of them do not even have $500 on cash on hand to handle emergencies. 70% of college grads have $15,000 or more of loans throughout just their first year. Now, those stats, a huge chunk of those people's problems that I just listed are due to their own piss-poor money management skills. There are many people I've met throughout my life who have made way more money than me, but have less savings. They have more of a problem paying for bills, even though my bills are more and theirs are less, like, et cetera, et cetera. Those stats are not all due to the fact that the government sucks with its handling the economy and its meddling the economy and the financial crisis, whatever. Part of it is, part of it's not. You have to look through each individual person's examples and find what the root problem is. It's not a black or white issue. It's not, oh, everyone who's poor is stupid and lazy, and it's not everyone who has money problems, it's not their fault, it's the government's fault. It's not one or the other. I want to make that very clear because we're talking about how the government sucks with its economic policies, with its immigration policies, companies with their management policies, whatever. That's totally separate than a random dumbass who just spends way too much money on stupid crap and doesn't even bother trying to save up money. There's so many times I'm talking with my friends and they're like, Robert, I'm having money issues. Can I go over a few things with you? Because they know that I'm good at saving money. And I look through their financial stuff and they spend so much fucking money like on eating out and on alcohol and on clothes and shoes and just all these things that they do not need. It's like, I'm not saying you never can splurge, but when I'm seeing like if I do a pie chart of your monthly expenses and a huge fucking chunk of that is alcohol and fast food, and I'm like, you know what, you can lower those a bit. Just drink a little less, just eat out less, buy food and cook it. Actually take the time to cook food to save money instead of being lazy and just eating out all the time. Just those two things alone. If you just spend a little bit less on movie tickets or clothes or shoes, like some people spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on just shoes every single fucking year. I can't imagine that. I may spend like $100 in 1 year to buy a very specific pair of shoes, but then I won't buy a pair of shoes for like 3 years. So I end up spending, $33 a year on shoes? Or I buy a nice pair of dress shoes. I splurge a little bit and I buy it for $70. That thing will last me half a plus decade easily. No, some people spend hundreds of dollars on shoes every single goddamn year. On clothes, astronomical. I think I spend $40 on clothes a year, maybe. I think I might buy a band t-shirt every now and then like socks every now and then. Maybe it's closer to 50 or 60. But and they're like, holy shit, how do you do that? I'm like, because I'm not retarded. I don't go out and buy the latest designer shirts that are like $60 a pop, overpriced at like TJ Maxx or Target or something stupid. No, me splurging is paying $20 for a band t-shirt instead of $5 a t-shirt at Walmart. That's me splurging. So that's why I make a little caveat, and that was a long-winded monologue about these stats, is that if you make $40,000, $50,000 a year, there's no reason why you can't have $500 on cash on emergency fund. You know, I had a car payment. I have rent. I have a kid. I pay utilities. Like, I do all this stuff, and yet I have more savings than $500. Now, if you make $7,000 a year, like when I did when I was only working part-time because the economy sucked and that's the only job I could find, yeah, I can understand why you would have less than $500. I had way less than $500. So the reason why I bring up these stats is the difference between someone who could easily just make a couple of changes in their life and save more money and just spend smart and then not be so financially strapped. There's a difference between that and then someone who is legit doing everything correctly. They're saving as much money as they can. They don't splurge. They only buy necessities. And they splurge a little bit. Everyone splurges every now and then, obviously. They do every single thing you can think of to get ahead in life, and they're still poor. And they're still behind. They still can't afford a house. That's where we can determine, okay, it's not their personal fault. That means the government is fucking things up. The companies are fucking things up. How are companies fucking things up? Point 3, companies are sitting on cash but not raising wages. One of the biggest consequences of 2008 financial crisis was that so many people, upper-level people, who made money, who made like six-figure jobs, you know, who had houses, families, lots of those people lost their jobs. Millions of people like that lost their jobs. There was such an overflow of workers versus the available jobs that people with master's degrees were taking bartender jobs because it's the only thing they could find, and people who would normally take the bartender jobs got beat out by them and they had no job. And that's why the unemployment rate was high for so long. There were way too many people out of work versus the amount of jobs. Companies noticed this pretty fast, and they're like, you know what? We're not going to bother training anyone. We're not going to bring some young grad in and train them to do this job. No, we know there are people out there who already know how to do this job, so we'll just put a job posting out. Entry level needs 5 years of experience and $2,000 worth of certifications, and we'll get like 20 fucking applicants within the first day. Why? Because people are that desperate for a job, and there are that many people with those credentials out there already, desperately seeking a job. Because they had families, because they had mortgages, whatever. Companies, I remember the story my grandma used to tell me, that in the 1980s, when you had a college degree, employers would chase you trying to get you to work for them. Now it's completely the other way around. Now people are begging companies, let me work for you. And companies know that. They have known this for quite some time, that they hold all the power, they hold all the cards. Because what? If someone complains about something, about job conditions or wages or anything, they'll just say, okay, you're fired. I'll get someone else who's on the street working part-time to do your job. There's so many people out there who can do your job that I don't give a shit what you think. That's one of the negative consequences of 2008 financial crisis that altered the economy. That's why we haven't seen wage growth in so long. That's part of the reason why. That companies have no incentive to do so, because there's always someone willing to find, to work that job. With bringing in 1 million legal immigrants every single year, there is always a steady flow of people to do that crappy job for a low wage because people are desperate. They need money. If we didn't bring in 1 million people every single year, then the available people to fill jobs would be less. Companies would be incentivized to better work conditions, to better wages, to better retirement things, for example, and wages would go up. Wages have been going up for a long time until the 1960s. What a surprise. That's when the guy was talking about his parents. When the Immigration Act changed everything. And now we bring in 1 million people in this country every single year. It's a multifaceted problem. Companies, their attitude is part of the problem. Immigration is part of the problem. The 2008 financial crisis was part of the problem. The way the government handled that was part of the problem. It's not all one thing or the other. It's not like if we just got rid of immigration, that would fix everything. That would fix a lot of things. That would improve things to a point, but it wouldn't solve every single fucking problem. Now, younger people are shut out of entire sectors of the economy, and jobs are left unfulfilled for years and years because no one can get the experience to do them. Now, in 2019, the last couple of years, I noticed slowly the tides are turning, and now the amount of people looking for work is much less. Why? Either they found work or they stopped looking. Then that's why the unemployment rate is so low. So when the company's still going through the mindset they had the past decade, turn out an entry-level job that pays crap and needs 5 years experience and $2,000 worth of certifications, that job doesn't get filled. And they just sit there and they don't change, they don't raise the wage so people are more incentivized to apply to it. No, they just like, okay, well, I guess we're going to have 10 people on this team. We're only going to have 5. And those 5 people, they're going to do the work of 2 people to make up for that. There's so many instances of where an office downsizes and the person who left or gets fired or whatever, their job responsibility just go to other people. They don't fill that position. So the people left there are still getting paid the same, but they have increased workload. They're doing more work for the same pay. Meanwhile, a potential job for someone doesn't exist anymore. That's why there's a huge shortage of workers like in the construction field, in the farming field, in the IT field. Why? Because all of these jobs now, they didn't used to, now they need, you need experience in that specific profession to get an entry-level job in that job. Well, how are you going to do that if no one's going to hire you with no experience? It's like that circular thing. You need experience to get a job. You need a job to get experience. You need experience to get a job. And people are shut out of it. I remember when I was looking for a full-time job after college, I wasn't finding anything. So I'm like, well, I hear they always need auto techs. Auto techs pay well. Let me go back to training for that. And I took one course, didn't learn shit because the quality of education has gone downhill. That's a problem for another time. Not only did I didn't learn anything and spend hundreds of dollars on that course, they're like, oh yeah, you're actually going to need all these courses, or you have to buy all your own equipment, which is literally thousands of dollars. Oh, and you're going to take all these certification courses that also cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So you're going to have to put down thousands of dollars before you even have a shot of applying to a job. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I just paid off my college loans. Why the fuck would I do that? Why would I take such a gamble? My savings is already going down the drain because I'm living in an area where a townhouse costs $300,000 and I'm making $7,000 a year, only working part-time. Why would I ever make that gamble? Yeah, it could pay off, and I could land a high-paying auto tech job, and I can repay all the debt I took. Or most likely, no, I wouldn't be able to because the job feels so fucking competitive. So take someone like me who was perfectly willing to be an auto tech, to work those long hours, to be down in the dirt, working in hot, sweaty, greasy conditions, because I like working on cars. But the way companies set up their structure, instead of just taking someone who's willing to learn, is like, you know what? You're smart, you're willing to learn, you already know a few things. Let me take you under your wing, let me train you, let me pay for some of your equipment. That's ridiculous, you have to pay for your own fucking equipment. Do dentists have to pay for their own equipment? Do police officers need to pay for their equipment? It's ridiculous. No wonder there's a shortage of auto techs. Companies used to do that. Companies used to take young people under their wing and teach them and put time and investment in them. And they turned out to be good employees. And that's why people worked for the same company for a long time. And they became like senior managers. They knew everything about it. They were trained. Now, companies are like, no, we'll just bet on the fact that someone already is out there who already has their tools, who already has all these certifications, and they're applied to the job, and we'll hire them instead of taking someone under a new person to give them a shot. That's why so many young people are shut out of whole various sectors of the economy. I just use that one auto tech example. The IT field the exact same way. Construction, exact same way. There are no entry-level construction jobs around here. I looked. For years I looked. They all require 5 years of experience and $2,000 of all these certifications. I'm like, I don't have $2,000. How do I get 5 years of construction experience when you won't hire me for a construction job? Like, it made absolutely no fucking sense. And construction people, why there's a huge shortage of construction workers. No, it's not because young people are lazy and stupid. It's because you shut us out. You say, we don't want you. We don't want you working for us. It's like, fine, then I won't work for you. I'll be an office manager. At least they're fucking hiring me. That's why I'm an office manager. So in conclusion, that's why. What was the original point of this article? That's why wages are not rising. That's why people's quality of life suck. That's why people can't buy houses anymore. That's why people aren't working certain jobs that are vital to this country, to any society functioning. You need auto techs, you need IT people, you need construction. This is why we're facing all of these problems in our country. Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, because of immigration, because of companies' hiring practices, because of 2008 recession and the consequences of that, and how the government mishandled by bailing out the companies who failed instead of letting new ones who are better take their place. No, they bail them out and they still have corrupt, inefficient companies. That's it in a nutshell, guys.